baby boomers, everybody. We all are getting older. We're all interested in our brain health. Do not miss this episode because we have Dr. Mary Zennett. She is a physician dedicated to healthy lifestyle, and she's raising funds for holistic health research on Alzheimer's. Dr. Zennett, I am thrilled to have you. I'm so glad you're part of LifeMaven podcast because we live in the energy of our legacy now and not later. So how can you relate to that?
Oh, thank you so much, Jody. Thank you for having me. Well, I tell you, what you just said, living your legacy, living the energy. So here's the thing. We need to cultivate. We need to meditate, pray, figure out, wait a minute, my energy, what is that? My purpose, what is that? But how do we get to that point? With self-awareness, we meditate. We search within ourselves and say, oh, okay. You know what you hear people say, oh, there's a reason I'm here. Ooh, light bulb goes on. But that just doesn't happen. We need to cultivate our inner self and say, my God, what am I doing here? And that happened for me. I would say it was 15 years ago, and it was a challenging time in life. But I said, no, I gotta do this prayer and meditation. And you want to know something, Jody? A light bulb went on. It's like, you are about the transformation of health. And I'm like, what? I mean, it just didn't make sense. You know, I was sweeping my floor, I was shuffling papers. It's like, what? So I wrote a book on the transformation of health. And that was, but it forced me 18 months of research to really learn our healthcare system. And back then it was something that people weren't talking about a whole lot. We hear a lot more now, which is good. But I said, my God, we are not focused on prevention. And well, why? Prevention doesn't make a lot of money.
That's right, because
But it's
I'm sorry, go on, please.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, because one of the things I noticed, and it was, is that we are donating millions and millions of dollars into how to solve the symptom, the problem, but not to get to the actual core of the problems. And we're feeding the problem. We're not being proactive at all. And all the money, though, is going towards, oh, gee whiz, now you got a heart attack. Well, how do we prevent it? What do we do before that? Or you got Alzheimer's. Well, what are we going to do when you're 40, 50 years old? So you can avoid something like that.
Exactly. Exactly. And at a cellular level, the way our bodies are designed, this is what I've gotten involved with, nutrients that help fill the body with what the body needs. And it is amazing how you are able to prevent or even reverse the disease process. But you see, we live in an era where we can't even talk like that. There is a law, and it's the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1938. And I would encourage your listeners to look it up. That law is on the books that says only a drug can claim to cure, treat, or mitigate a disease. So what do? Well, we research, we learn, and we do what we need to do, which is infuse our bodies of nutrients and live as healthy lifestyle as we can. And the way I look at it is, don't worry about the semantics. Okay, well, we're not treating disease, okay? But we're helping people stay healthy. And my prayer is that in our lifetimes, we'll see a change to these laws that are governing all of this. But until that time, we can't let it get in our way. We have to learn what we can do to live optimally and learn from doctors, scientists that are proving that, wow, I'm this is helping me. I'm really getting better. So yeah, it's an interesting time to be alive, Jody. There's no question about it.
Well, Mary, let me ask you a question. You've been in this business a long time. You've seen so many different things. Now, we both know that hundreds of years ago, they used herbs, they used mixtures, and that was very natural. And now we're just, why and how do we get stuck in this pill industry? And some of these reactions to these medicines are so severe but they keep on feeding them out. I mean, what do you think is causing this? And how
Well,
our mindset? I mean,
it's profits. I've said this when I wrote this book 15 years ago. It's a real simple book. Profits over people. Okay. If you can use an herb or a supplement to really help a person, okay, you're not cornering a market. Okay. I listen to some of this stuff and I'm just horrified. It's like, oh my God. So we're promoting risky interventions. And I might say there's people who might benefit from these risky interventions, but they're in the minority. What happened to the principle of public health? That's for all of us, that's not tied to a profit. What happened to that? I look and I ask myself, I said, my God, we've gone down the wrong direction. I'm sure your listeners are very astute, aware, and which is awesome. But I think it's incumbent upon everybody in your audience to gently kind of reach out. There's so many people that are still in the dark. And a lot of these interventions have a lot of risks, but they say, oh, well, they told me it's good for me. Well, but what about the risk? And this goes into informed consent. I remember when I wrote my little book, I'm like, you know what? We don't have informed consent anymore. Informed consent means the provider, the doctor, goes through all the risks and the benefits, the pros and the cons of a particular intervention. And that's fine. But see, right now in healthcare, it's just check a little box. Yep, patient has informed consent. No, they don't. No, they don't.
well, I don't know.
So that's another area that we need to.
Well, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm confused because whenever I've had an operation, they go over it and over it. It's almost ad nauseum. I mean, so that's my experience.
Well, and you said something. You had an operation. That's a really serious intervention. And I'm thrilled you had that. But the average person that goes into a visit, okay, 10 minutes to see the provider, just a routine checkup. Yeah. How much informed consent are they getting? Not enough. Because if there are risks, and again, just to plant the seeds, if there are risks to, say, a particular medication, okay, you've got to share with the patient how much risk there is. You could have XYZ, or if you use this, say a natural, but we don't do that. We don't do that. I think that's an area that really needs to change. So like I said, I'm thrilled you had the informed consent, but it was a serious procedure. But the average person going into the doctor for their checkup, there's not a lot about real informed consent.
What realistically do you think that we can do as listeners to start taking ownership of our own healing? Because sometimes I know, of course, years ago when this would come to mind, people would think, oh, they're nuts, they're crazy, blah, blah, blah. But now I think it's kind of coming together more. I still, and you're in a position, which I really would like to hear this, is that some people think that it's just like you take a pill and you feel better. You're going to do something natural and all of a sudden you feel better. That doesn't happen. People are different. How do you get that mentality
Well,
different?
you are right. You're absolutely right. See, the body does not work that way. And you could see why the feel ill, take a pill is so popular. Wow. I just heard somebody say this yesterday. If I want to lose weight, I want to take a pill. I want this to all go away. I don't blame people, but the body does not work that way. There's how many millions of little chemical reactions going on in the body and in the brain. And it takes such time. And we need to be patient with our bodies and be in tune with our bodies. We all have different metabolisms. We all have different, like, I'll be honest with you. Some people could take a medication and have no problems. Other people, they'll have a violent reaction. And it's scary. So we've got to begin to know our bodies and then safely try different things. It's like, wow, but whatever I try to minimize the risk, but try to be proactive. And I think the more we do that as a society, and I believe we're getting there, Jody, we are getting there. It's just a long, painful process. But yeah, reach out to your friends, your neighbors, your family, not in a judgmental way, but just in an inquisitive way. Hey, how are you doing? How's that going? And gently approach people and see, because you see people, they have, now this gets into lifestyle, okay? Our chronic disease rates in the US are skyrocketing. We spend the most on healthcare in the world, right? How many billions of dollars that we should have such poor health scores? There's something not right. And ask yourself, what's the biggest influencer of chronic disease? Lifestyle. So how a diet plays a big role. Okay. How healthy are we eating? And I'm sorry to say this, but the average food today is still so processed. When we say processed, okay, picture anything like in a wrapping that they put together. Okay, you've got all these artificial, what would you say, ingredients. There's pesticides in our food. Okay, this is unconscionable. Pesticides. And what are we doing to minimize that risk? So that's why lifestyle is huge. If you did nothing else, listen, and there's tons of really good information out there today. We really do have that resource. Your show, you talk to a lot of informed guests, is any little changes you can do to your lifestyle will have an exponential benefit for you, but you don't see it right away. You don't see it, but it's like, for example, they say one of the worst things, okay, is all the soda that is consumed in this society. And you'll see people, they're carting out the cases of the soda. This is not good for us, but it's something that we can change, okay? I'll be honest with you, water, okay? Now, tap water is not all it's cracked up to be. There's a lot of, our filtration systems are not the best. So do some research. It's like, what water can I use that's in my budget? Budget is a big issue, but that's healthier for me. That's huge. I'll be honest with you. The pesticides in our vegetables, okay? This is heart-wrenching because all the commercialization of our farming, okay, has resulted in, again, commercial, we spray. I mean, you see the video, spray
Right. We
all
we
this,
do.
okay?
Yep, we're always
Now,
spraying. That's true. That's very true. They are.
and all these are not good for our brains. So, and you can rinse and rinse and rinse, but you're not going to eliminate all of it. So when we say eat organic, you get a lot of criticism for that. Oh, well, organic is overrated. You know what? It's not. It's not overrated. It's just that right now, the majority of our produce is not healthy. So, and I'll be honest with you, the organic, okay, so you got the farms, and then the toxins will blow in from another piece of land, so it's not necessarily 100% organic. So it puts us in a really, really tough situation. But you know what? You hedge your bet. You go, you know what? I'm going to do the best I can. And maybe I can't eat as much organic as I would like, but with produce, you're better off research, get a little organic, like a canister of pure vegetables or pure fruits grown organically. And then you sprinkle that on your food. And that's a really relatively inexpensive way to get the nutrients in your food. So if we made those changes, the veggies, oh, the other big one, and this is very sad to say, is these high fructose corn syrup. Most of us should know about that, okay? It's in everything, but you got to read the labels, okay? Is this sweetened with high fructose corn syrup? And I'll tell you the other ones is these cereals. It breaks my heart because the kids see the boxes and they get so excited. It's like, oh my God, this is really not good for us. So if you're consuming all this every day, it's just not good. The other one is vegetable oils. Jody, if people are aware of the risks of these vegetable oils, you see the marketing, it's heart healthy. No, it's not. It's not heart
I have a question
healthy.
for you. I've got to know this. Will you please tell me, are there any margarines? Because I see a lot of them saying, like, the one that's not butter or what. Are there any that are really healthy for you at
I
all?
don't think so.
I didn't think so.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just curious because I know you are
You're
a doctor. But what is the thing? Like you are a doctor, you are a psychiatrist. You go in, you help the patients. Have you seen dramatic differences when you've had them change their diet?
Well, I would tell you the research is clear. Okay, like there are some supplements that do it, like for kids, natural health. And again, I'm not here promoting any brands, but when you look at the results and you're like, wait a minute, bipolar, ADHD, PTSD, autism, down the line, that the addition of these nutritional supplements helped these children. It's like, wow, the research is demonstrating the progress. So that's how we got involved with so before I talk about the Alzheimer's, I want to tell you, I had done a pilot trial years ago, and we added quality nutritional supplements to children with pretty severe bipolar. Okay, so these kids were very aggressive. When I say aggressive, okay, they'd be sitting in the living room, and all of a sudden, one of them would just throw a lamp right at somebody's head or in a window. Really, like sudden, explosive. Okay. Well, these poor families. Okay, you're walking on eggshells. So when we did our study, okay, it was to examine the addition of the quality nutritional supplements. First thing out of the parent's mouth, don't touch their medication, because the medication, they had worked hard to get them to a point that they could try to keep them out of the hospital, and they weren't being as assaultive. They weren't great. When we met the kids, okay, Jody, they had like this drugged look, lines under their eyes, And it's like, oh my God, this is not health. You know, a poor kid to be subdued is, I don't want to see a zombie, but it's pretty darn close. Okay, so 6 months, and the parents were very, very faithful, made sure the kids got the supplements and would give them powder that it could mix in, say, applesauce, you know, to give them to swallow pills, forget it. But they would get the supplements in. I'm telling you. Now, we thought we'd have some progress, okay, but 6 months, the number one benefit was the side effect scores. The side effect scores went down to almost zero. And these kids, like I said, they had bags under their eyes, they looked zombified at the beginning of the study. Okay, in 6 months, happy, healthy, calm, not thrown out of school. They were at grade level, school, social, in 6 months. Church, they could sit, these kids couldn't sit in church, a church service, but they could in 6 months. So, okay, to me, you had to see it to believe it, okay? And I remember going to there, you know, at the time I was in an area where there were a lot of university medical centers. And I said, hey, here's the results of our study. We did a 6 month and we did a nine, you know, then for 9 months. And it was very comparable. What about running a larger study? Well, you should have seen the looks on their faces. They go, did you bring the money? We'll run any study you want. And I was so naive, and it just broke my heart. I'm like, why are we here? Why are we here? Aren't we trying to help people with quality of life? And it was very clear to me at that time that the universities, at least the ones that I approached, basically had no interest in researching nutrition. And that broke my heart, Jody. It did. And I said, but we can't stop it. We know that the body needs these nutrients to thrive. So, and we know our diets are lacking in the nutrients. Okay. We know that. Okay. Glyphosate. Glyphosate is one of the most commonly used pesticides. Okay. Sprayed just so liberally on the, well, glyphosate robs the body of nutrients, vital nutrients in the body. So the more glyphosate we're eating, the less nutrients we're getting in our system.
Well, let me ask you a question, because you do work in a hospital environment, and that does, in my mind, mean that there must be some sort of medicines that you dispense to the patients. How do you balance that out for yourself?
Well, that's a really good question. You know, crisis intervention, first of all, everybody does not get medication. I will say that. I think this is how I prescribe. You got to be very cautious, weigh the pros and cons. Oftentimes they come in and it's what medicines have tried and failed. And there's like so many. So it's like, well, wait a minute. We got to be really careful if we prescribe anything not to do more harm. And so as many of the people that come in, again, this is crisis intervention. They might get a medication, a low dose medication to take the edge off. And people do benefit. I'm not going to tell you they don't benefit, but I think everything is done in a balance. You don't just shove medicines, like I told you, but those kids that were drugged, because that is not our goal. That people will leave the facility a walking zombie. We want them to function and be able to go back to work and back to school and all of that. And so less is more. A friend of mine has that motto, less is more. But I'll be honest with you, in the fields that we're in, and that people don't talk like that. It's, how much, what doses can we give, and all of this. And honest, it's too much. We live, like you said earlier, we said, feel ill, take a pill society, and the body does not work that way. So I'll tell you, I love my crisis intervention work. I really do. But it is a subset. It's not the whole picture. It's the people need to embark on a wellness plan when they're released, and that's a long-term process. A long-term is like, gee, maybe they need a health coach, and be more proactive. Watch there's tons of good information out on the internet, but seek it out. And then if you see it's unhealthy, it's like, you know what? I don't have time for that anymore. That has to do with your self-worth. I'm important. I need to take care of myself better. So it's a culture shift. And I'm sure you are, like with your audience, Jody, you're enlightening people, you're educating people. And that's critical. That's critical. You're empowering people.
Well, and you are, yeah, thank you. And because this is having people like you on, because then they could see the thing that I'm interested. What would you tell somebody who's 60 years old, maybe overweight? What is the motivation to really get out of that? I think I'll have a couple of Twinkies or whatever it is, Because I think to get motivated is just, what would you say that might just, have that spark to say you matter? I think it's kind of tough.
Well, you're right, because the the Twinkies or the unhealthy foods, they have an addictive quality. So it's like you get that little surge of adrenaline. It's like, oh, that feels good. And we've got to look with, how would you say, get the rose-colored lenses off and say, now I've read an article today. There's great information out there. It's like there's little exercises you can do when you're 60 that can greatly enhance your life. When you're 70, when you're 80, when you're 90, can you believe you'll make it to that age? And if you see you're on an unhealthy track, it's like, wait a minute, I don't want to be a vegetable. I do not want to not be independent. And so the one exercise was help it, like, be your ability to get up off the ground. If you're on the ground, your ability to get up without assistance. Well, as you get older, that's not easy to do. But it's a marker. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. I better do something. I better do something. And lifestyle, it's what you put in your mouth and what you think up here is those are two critical ingredients. I have friends that says, you know what? I just got rid of all the junk in my refrigerator. I got rid of every last bit of it. And you know what? Be encouraged, because it's never too late. See, the way our bodies work and the cells work, okay? Your little manufacturing plants, you got millions of little manufacturing plants. So out with the junk, in with the good, and the more good you put in, the healthier you're going to be. So, but it's a process. And then the more, okay, like you say, motivation, okay, well, it's time to click on some of those motivational videos and say, hey, this is applying to me. And I'll tell you what, Jody, prayer meditation, you know what you'll say? You're like, oh my God, I gotta do something. I gotta, I can't let this go another day. I've got to do something. I have a plan and purpose for my life, and I need to get on the track. I need to get on the road why am I here? But see, that takes time. And like we said earlier, meditation, healthy living, okay, and you'll figure out, wait a minute, yeah, I got all these things I want to do with my life, and I need to do it. But if I can't get up off the floor, I'm not going to be able to do much of anything.
Did you have any danger markers for yourself that caused your own
Oh,
evolving?
I still do. I still do. And I'm working at it. I'm working at it constantly. So, but my real health story was my mom. Okay. My mom was diagnosed with metastatic breast cancer, and she was given 6 months to live.
God,
Okay, that was back in the 80s. Yeah, 6 months. And of course, we were just absolutely beyond devastated. My mom was she's a really sweet, caring, very empathic woman. So, oh my God, how can that be? And I remember talking to her, and she said, you know what? She goes, it's not my time to die. And she was 80, 83 pounds, soaking wet. I mean, she was in really bad shape. And you're like, my God, it's not my time to die. And sure enough, she beat that diagnosis. She beat. So what happened? There were in her scans, she had spread to the bone and the liver, which, as you know, that's not a real good sign with cancer, the metastasis. Those tumors encapsulated, they had little membranes. And so they never went away, but they never spread. They stopped spreading.
God,
Well, my mouth was like hanging open. I'm like, oh my God. But it was here. And she says, no, I'm supposed to live. And she did. She lived 26 more good years. So if that didn't wake me up, I don't know what could have. And the power of the mind and the spirit, but also she was a master of like proportions. She didn't eat junk, very health conscious. And that was back in the day when it wasn't really that popular. Um, there's some fad diets, but not good, wholesome eating. But yeah, it was mind, prayer, diet, and yeah, she beat metastatic cancer. And I'll be honest with you, over the years, I've met people. They're like, this is impossible. How did you make it? But they did. They did. So it's a beckoning call to all of us to, gee, how are we doing with our lifestyles? How are we doing with our diets? And how much are we taking in? There's so much negativity. There's so much negativity. Do we have time for that? No. But we've got to keep it at the door. We've got to keep it at the door. You were talking about like quotes, and there was one, and it reminds me, life is 10% what happens to me, and 90% how I react to it. Think about that. Are we gonna panic, fear, all of these things? Are we gonna say, wait a minute? Excuse me, I know who I am, and I'm going to focus positive, live positive. It makes all the difference in the world.
how true. Uh, Unfortunately, our time is zipping through. Can you please share with us what you can offer our listeners?
Excuse me. Absolutely. You know what? I would like you to follow our nonprofit, because when you see, there was a pilot study done 10 years ago that gave patients with moderate to severe Alzheimer's nutrition. You say that's all they got. That's all they got. Think about this, moderate to severe. And they had statistically and clinically significant improvement. Light bulbs going on in the mind, like, oh, I know who I am. I recognize my spouse. I recognize my neighborhood. To me, it's absolutely shocking. So yeah, go to our website and you'll read more about it. Excuse me. And what we're trying to do, we are raising money for a larger study, but I think before asking for funds, I need you to look at this and say, my God, this is the result of nutrition, quality nutrition, transforming people's lives. How incredible is that? So yeah, I would ask you to just check our website, and it's ghh.world, ghh.world, and you'll read about it. And that's what I'm asking you to do, is keep an open mind and say, wow, can this really happen? And it can. That's the amazing thing. It is happening.
And we will have this information on the text and more information. But also, thank you for helping us open up our minds and our hearts to knowing that there is possibility and that we can be in charge of our health and we're worth it. And that's a real big message. Thank you for bringing that message today.
Thank you so much, Jody.